The desert stretched endlessly in every direction, a barren sea of sand and rock where nothing moved and nothing lived. And in the very heart of that silence stood a house. It was not grand, nor even remarkable at first glance, just a squat, weathered structure of rotting boards and peeling paint, half sunken into the earth like it was ashamed to be seen. But when the wind died and the coyotes went quiet, the hum could be heard, low and steady, a vibration that carried in the bones, more than the ears. It was like the drone of a colossal machine buried beneath the sand, or the breath of something sleeping very deep. Doctor Ethan Moore parked his dusty Jeep at the edge of the property and cut the engine. For a long moment, he just sat there with his fingers clamped around the steering wheel, staring at the house. Clara leaned forward from the passenger seat, her camera hanging from her neck. She was skeptical, always skeptical, but there was a tightness in her jaw that betrayed her nerves. "That's it?" she asked, whispering like she didn't want the house to hear. "That's it," Ethan said. His voice came out thin. "Do you feel it?" Clara frowned. "Feel what?" He didn't answer. She noticed her own teeth chattering. Softly, not from coal, but from something else. A tremor carried through the frame of the Jeep. The humming was faint now, like the lowest note on an organ pressed without end, but it made the dashboard vibrate. The sheriff had warned them. Dalton was his name, a leathery man with eyes bleached pale by the sun. He'd stood at the diner where they'd met him and told them flat out, "Don't go near that house. People walk in, they don't walk out. You don't want to end up humming with it." Then he'd spat into his coffee and refused to explain, but Ethan couldn't leave it alone. He was a researcher obsessed with unexplained sound phenomena, and this place was legend among fringe communities. He'd read of people whose bones supposedly cracked from the vibration, whose eardrums burst as if they'd been standing under a jet engine. Clara had come for the footage, the proof, or, in her opinion, the debunking. They got out. The desert air was still and dry, the sky washed with bruised purple as the sun slid down. With every step closer, the hum thickened. Ethan's chest seemed to buzz against his ribs, and his jaw hurt like he'd been grinding his teeth. Clara set up her tripod anyway, shaking her head. Inside, the air was warmer, heavier, and the hum doubled in volume. The walls trembled so subtly that a glass set on the counter skittered half an inch. Paint curled off the wood like dried skin. Ethan unpacked his equipment, microphones and meters, muttering to himself with the excitement of a man chasing something. He'd hunted for years. Clara filmed him, catching the sweat already beating his forehead. "Baseline frequency," Ethan whispered, checking the screen. 70 hertz. But it's fluctuating. It's alive. "You make it sound like a heartbeat," Clara said. He froze. "Exactly." The night settled fast over the desert. They lit a lantern in the living room, though the shadows seemed thicker here, and the hum rose with the darkness. Objects rattled. The lantern's flame danced wildly without a breeze. Clara rubbed her ears. "It's inside me," she said. "Like my skull is shaking." At midnight, the sound shifted. It dropped lower, deeper, like the house had taken a breath. Clara winced. A thin stream of blood leaked from her left nostril. Ethan handed her a tissue, but he was bleeding too from both nostrils, red drops spattering his notes. The microphones picked up more than hum now. Buried under the drone were faint noises, wet noises, squelches, sighs, the gurgle of fluid. Through tubes, Clara played it back, her hands trembling. "That's not mechanical. That's biological." Something thudded in the basement. Not a single thump, but a pulse, in rhythm with the hum. They went down, lantern swinging. The basement smelled like rust and rot, metallic and damp in the dry desert air. On the walls were blackened burns shaped like veins. But when Clara looked closer, they weren't burns at all. They were dried channels of blood, trickled and hardened into branching patterns. She lifted her camera and gagged. There were remains fused into the walls. A hand protruded near the foundation stones, flesh long gone, bones smeared with dried red. Higher up, a skull bulged from plaster, jaw stretched wide in a scream, teeth cracked and scattered like gravel. The hum intensified. The lantern chirk. In Ethan's grip, the basement floor quivered. Clara stumbled, and when she caught herself, her hand sank into the wall like it was soft clay. She screamed. Ethan pulled her free, and when her arm came loose, strips of skin stayed behind, clinging. Weightly to the wall before slowly being absorbed, slipped away like the house was feeding. Blood dripped down her wrist, bright and steaming. "We need to go," she cried, but Ethan was transfixed. His recorder was screaming with data. The frequency spikes made the graph jagged like heart monitor lines. His eyes were wide, feverish. "Don't you see, it's alive? The house itself, it's a body. The hum is its pulse." Clara shoved him, but the vibration surged like an angry growl. The floor split open, a jagged crack, and from it oozed a black-red substance, thick as tar but pulsing with veins of crimson light. The smell was unbearable, copper and rot. Clara staggered back, clutching her bleeding arm as the crack whitened, and the sound deepened until her teeth chattered uncontrollably. Her jaw popped out of place. She screamed, but the scream warbled, broken by the vibration. Blood burst from her ears, spraying the lantern glass. Her body convulsed, shaking so violently her fingernails tore from their beds, flying off in bloody arcs. Ethan grabbed her, but the house pulled. The wall sucked at her like a mouth, dragging her hand, then her arm, then her torso into its surface. She thrashed, face splitting as skin tore from bone, but the wall swallowed her, inch by inch. Her blood spread across the basement like a stain, seeping into cracks as if feeding the house's hunger. Her last visible eye bulged in terror before the wall closed over her with a wet, sucking sound. Ethan fell to his knees, covered in her. Blood, staring at the place where she'd been. His equipment whined, the hum now sensed with his heartbeat. His vision blurred. Every vibration rattled his bones, knocking them against each other like glass. He tried to crawl for the stairs, but his teeth shook loose, dropping into his lap with strings of saliva and blood. His nails split as he clawed upward. He reached the first step before the floor pulsed. The wood beneath him softened, turned fleshy, and his hand sank into it wrist deep. He yanked free, but his skin peeled off, leaving tendons exposed. He howled, voice cracking, and then the sound cut short as the hum overtook it. His chest collapsed inward with a sickening crunch, ribs snapping like twigs as the frequency crushed him from within. He felt his organs rupture, blood bubbling up. His throat spraying the steps in thick clots. His eyes liquefied in his skull, dribbling down his cheeks as he clawed forward blindly. The house moaned with him, a deeper harmonic note vibrating the entire structure. The last thing he managed was to slam his recorder against the step, leaving it there running as the house dragged him back, sucking his ruined body into the wall. Beside Clara's, his flesh melted into the plaster, his bones grinding into the frame, his scream stretched into a long, endless vibration that became part of the hum. At dawn, the desert was silent again. Sheriff Dalton drove up, chewing the end of an unlit cigar. He didn't bother calling out. He knew. He went inside, lantern light cutting across dust. The house was quiet now, resting. In the basement, he saw fresh streaks of blood dragged across. The stone leading into the walls were new bulges pressed outward shapes of arms. Legs, faces half-formed, still twitching. On the steps lay the recorder. Dalton picked it up with 2 fingers, careful not to touch the blood. He rewound and played the last minutes. The hum roared through the speaker, vibrating his palm, and under it came Ethan's voice, faint and breaking. "It's not a house. It's waiting for more." Then the sound of organ squelching, bone snapping, and one final, inhuman note that wasn't made by any throat. Dalton clicked it off, shoved it into his jacket, and walked out into the desert sun. Behind him, the house seemed to sigh like it was already dreaming of its next meal.
Please like and subscribe channel Fear Frequency for more horror stories. Thank you.